Welcome, wherever you are in the world, to Oxford, and in particular to St Mary's, Iffley. I'm Andrew, the vicar here. This ancient house of prayer, built in 1160, is where we've gathered during Advent to wait and pray for the coming of God's kingdom. This year, that's not been possible. But God's invitation to us remains to wait, to watch, and to pray for the coming of Christ's kingdom. So this year, we have to do things differently, to embody God's invitation to us. Roger Wagner has contributed so much to the life of this church. I'm now delighted to hand over to him at home for the first of these Advent reflections.
No one knows quite when Christians first started to celebrate Advent. The great Jewish festival of Passover was based on the mighty saving act of God in rescuing Israel. The Roman festivals like Saturnalia were dedicated to particular gods and their characteristics. So it was natural for the early Christian community, as they tried to find a pattern for their yearly worship, to configure it around the life, death and resurrection of Christ. And as by the beginning, certainly by the 4th century, the great festival of Easter was being preceded by a preparatory season of Lent, so by the 5th century, the celebration of the birth of Christ at Christmas was being preceded by the preparatory season of Advent. During the course of this year, COVID-19 has stolen many things. It has stolen hundreds of thousands of lives around the world. It has stolen countless livelihoods. It's stolen weddings. It's stolen funerals. It's stolen many of the ordinary ways by which we mark the passage of the year. The great 17th century Bishop Lancelot Andrewes once said that time is a thief stealing our memories, but that the seasons of the Christian year force the thief of time to give back what he has stolen and restore our memories of what has been forgotten. We still don't know how far or to what extent Christmas will be stolen from us this year, but Advent is one season that can't be stolen, because Advent is defined by longing. The earliest Advent songs that we have, which go back to the 6th or 7th century, are the 7 so-called Great O antiphons, which were successively sung on the 7 Sundays leading up to Christmas. They're called Great O antiphons because each one begins with the word O. O Sapientia, O Oriens, O Emmanuel, O Wisdom, O Dayspring, O God with us. And each of them contains the word Veni, come. That taken, of course, from the great prophecies in Isaiah, which has these titles of the Messiah. And it's been said that the Christian writer of these antiphons has, though living in the world AD, world where Christ has come, has, as it were, projected themselves back into the world BC, the world before Christ, the world longing for a saviour. 6 years or so ago, Our friend, the composer J.A.C Redford, invited Anne and me to the first performance of his setting of the antiphons in the chapel of Girton College, Cambridge. In fact, these weren't just settings of the antiphons, they were settings also of the sonnets written around these antiphons by the chaplain of Girton College, the poet Malcolm Guite. And over the next 3 weeks, we'll listen to 3 of these antiphons. Tonight, O Sapientia, next week, O Oriens, and the last week, O Emmanuel. And as you hear J.A.C's music, you'll see the words of Malcolm's sonnets. And behind these, I've put some of my own images to try and illustrate both music and sonnet. J.A.C's settings of the Latin antiphons are in a kind of plain chant, which, like the great walls of St Mary's, Iffley, remind us that as we keep the season of Advent, we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. But then Malcolm's sonnet takes us immediately into a deep reflection on the ultimate source of wisdom and order and rationality. Is the deep intelligibility that we find in the universe just a kind of illusion, or do we find it there and respond to it because we have been created by it and because it is at the heart of everything? I cannot speak unless I cannot think unless I have been thought, nor can I speak unless I have been spoken. As the antiphons become more focused on Christ, they become easier to illustrate. O Emmanuel, the final antiphon, takes us directly to the infant Christ. O Oriens, O light, O dayspring, which we'll hear next week, for a painter is just full of images. But this first antiphon, O sapiens, O wisdom, is more difficult. How do you depict wisdom? Wisdom is certainly something we long for at the moment. We need it as a world, we need it as a country, we need it as individuals. But where do we find it? The Latin antiphon speaks of wisdom as coming forth from the mouth of the Most High, reaching from one end to the other, mightily and sweetly ordering all things. And as I thought about this, it seemed to me I could illustrate it from our altar cloth here at St Mary's. It was made from a great assemblage of different materials, quilted together as a wonderful gift to the church by the team under Helen Saunders Gill, sweetly ordering all things until the final pattern emerged. So that at the beginning of Malcolm's sonnet, you'll see a part of my original design, and then the patterns slowly emerging. Then you plunge into the depths of Helen's wonderful embroideries. And then there's a brief glimpse of the dedication cross, one of the dedication crosses on the walls of St Mary's that were put there in the 12th century by the bishop dedicating the church, and which were the inspiration of the altar cloth. And then finally, you'll see the mosaic centerpieces that I made for the altar cloth, based on those dedication crosses, which were, each one was made for a different season of the church year, and are used here to illustrate the last lines of Malcolm's sonnet, where he talks of wisdom coming to us now disguised as everything. So as we hear the music and read the poetry and see the images, let these become a prayer. O Sapientia, O wisdom, come.
O Sapientia, exore altissimi prodissi, ad diligenza fine usque ad finem fortitem, suaviterque disponens omnia, veni addocendum nos viam prudentiae. Unless I have been taught. Nor can I speak unless I have been taught. I cannot teach except as I am taught. Oh, break the bread.